Hi stamping friends, Melissa Kerman here with Melissa's Crafting Treehouse. Today I'm going to be creating 4 focal pieces in front of you using Brusho, and I'll be using a variety of stamp sets and the Stamparatus. Now what I'm starting with is the Humming Along stamp set, and I've set the images up on the Stamparatus that I want to use so that I can stamp it in 3 different ways. I'm starting with the hummingbird, and I'm going to ink it up with my StazOn, and I'm going to stamp it, and then I'm going to use the hinge step, sort of lift that pad out, move it over one hinge, stamp it again without re-inking it, and do it again. And this way the hummingbird looks like it's flying essentially. And now I'm going to stamp my image just below the hummingbirds. And now I'm going to move on to the next one. So I'm going to do a little bit of stamping. I've got my guide set up right there, and this was for my Stamp Club members, so they could make any one of the variations that I'm going to be showing you today, just for fun. So this next version is going to feature the hummingbird and the flower. The hummingbird's going to be essentially sucking the nectar out of the flower. So I've created a mask by stamping on a post-it note and fussy cut that mask out. So I'm covering the image that I've done in the hummingbird with the mask and inking up my flower and stamping the flower. And this is going to make it look like the hummingbird is in front of the flower. And you can see I hadn't gotten a very good inking of the flower, so I inked it up again and stamped again. And because the paper is in place, I can restamp it very easily with the Stamparatus. And I just stamped a sentiment, all done with that focal piece. And now the last option was to stamp 3 flowers in the same way, making it look like one is just a bit lighter than the next, using the hinge step, of course, and then another sentiment. Now I'm using my magnets to hold down the paper, and that's very important, especially if you end up having to stamp it again. So it's in exactly the right place, so the image will superimpose over the first one that you did. So now I get to move on to the fun of coloring my focal pieces. Now I'm using watercolor paper and an aqua painter, and I'm basically coloring in one of the 3 floral images, flower images, with water. So the Brusho is essentially little crystals of color. It comes in a powder form, and it reacts with water, and it will only stick in the places where water is. So applying the water in this way helps to kind of focus where the crystals or where the color will show up. So now I'm sprinkling a little bit of the Prussian blue onto both the flower and the leaves. Now I'm sprinkling a little of the yellow on the leaf so that the leaf becomes green, and I'm sprinkling some red onto the flower. So I'm trying to get the flower to look sort of purple and the leaf to look sort of green. So now I'm just using my aqua painter to kind of move the color around a little bit, fill in some of the spots that don't have color to them yet. And as you can see, dabbing off some of the water and the color with a paper towel. You'll definitely want to have paper towels handy for playing with Brusho. Now I have found that the red and the blue Brusho in particular seem to have more color, like more pigment in them. They go a longer way. So when you use them, it can be very dark. So I've decided to spray my focal piece, and when you do that, it sort of moves the crystals around a little bit. And wherever there just happens to have been a crystal that maybe you didn't realize it was there, it's going to show up. So instead of having the color just on the flower, it's spread out a little bit because I sprayed it with my spray bottle. And you can see I'm kind of touching it up a little bit, and it looks a little too dark for me, so I went in, I wet it, and then I'm dabbing off quite a bit of the color, spraying it again. I'm going to dab off some more color, And I'm just trying to get at the color that I want it to be in the end, something more of a purple instead of, you know, just bunches of red and blue that aren't integrated. So I'm just going to keep playing with it until I like how it turned out, and then move on to the next focal piece. Now for this particular one, after I put it together in a card, I also added some Wink of Stella to the flower itself. Now the next focal piece I'm going to work on uses an image from the Flourishing Phrases stamp set. And so I'm setting myself up now with the Stamparatus, and there's the set. Incidentally, I like to put a stamp set underneath where I'm stamping, and that just provides a surface to be able to press the ink pad onto the stamp and get it well inked. So I'm stamping this image in the same way I did the last one, where I'm just repeatedly stamping it without re-inking it. So I get 3 images that sort of fade off into to the left side. And then I'm stamping my sentiment. And for this particular focal piece, I did it a little bit differently with the Brusho. So I'm starting by spraying my piece with water, as you can see I did here, and then I'm just going to randomly sprinkle colors here and abouts, and I'm using the blue and the yellow. I started with the yellow and then did the blue, and now I'm spraying it again to activate the crystals, adding a little bit more yellow and just spraying. This is the most random way to do it, and you kind of get a little bit of a hot mess, but it's also kind of fun. So I just kept sprinkling and spraying and dabbing with my paper towel until it looked like something that I liked, and then called it done. Next, I stamped my pig images in the same way, making it look like those little piggies were flying. And I did something a little bit different with the Brusho on this particular one. I did it in a much more controlled way, where I didn't actually do any spraying on it at all. I applied water to the pig itself, and then I created a paint palette for myself using the Brusho and a droplet of water in an actual palette. And I used the red, a very watered down red, to essentially color in the pig. And I created it so that the first pig was the darkest, and then the second pig was a little bit lighter, and then the third pig was super light. And I was just trying to get the pig to look pink. So I worked on the watercoloring of these pigs for a while, and I've got it on high speed, so you can just kind of watch me work on the shading and whatnot. So as I mentioned earlier, these were a club project, and everybody got to choose which images they used and how they colored it in. So there's lots of room for creativity, and it was so fun to watch the different things that people did. I will have some photos on my website to show some of that. The pigs were actually a great source of fun because one person did it in a completely different way, and then several others of us wanted to play with it too. So I'm going to have a post that's all about the pig and different ways to color the pig, and I think you'll enjoy seeing that when I get that post done. So last but not least, I've got the focal piece with the bird and the hummingbird and the flower, and I'm going to do a variety of things on this one because I want each of those different images to be a different color. So I want the hummingbird to be blue and the flower to be red, and of course the leaf to be green. So I started with my aqua painter coloring that image in, and I was looking at how much water was on the hummingbird to see if I could turn it over and tap off the little crystals that might be on the outside. If there's too much water on there and you lift it up and turn it over, you'll get a little dribble of water down your focal piece and kind of ruin it. So it seemed to be okay, so I turned it over and tapped off the crystals that were elsewhere on the focal piece besides on the hummingbird, and now I'm drying it so I can move on to the next step and do the next color. I'm now putting my mask onto my hummingbird to sort of protect it a little bit, and then I'm going to put water all over the flower and then sprinkle with the red Brusho. Next, I'm going to actually use my aqua painter and my paint palette. I have each of the 5 Brusho colors in my paint palette right there on the left, and I'm pulling up some of the orange to color the stamen or the pistils. I'm not sure which one those are, but the center of the flower. And then I'm doing some touch-ups on the red to kind of fill it in just a little bit. Now I'm trying not to fill it in completely. I don't really want it to be smooth. I want to see some of the texture of the Brusho when I'm done. So just something to keep in mind. So for the paint palette right there on the left, all I've done is taken a little bit of the crystals, put them into each little spot, and added a droplet of water and mixed it up. So those are the pure colors, the 5 that Stampin' Up! Sells. Now the palette I'm using on the right is different. I've taken an old accessory lid and put in some sprinkles of the yellow and the blue and mixed it up to come up with my own green color. And this is sort of more of a springy green. There is a green that comes in the set of 5 Brusho bottles, but that's more of a mossy green, and I kind of wanted something a little bit brighter, so I like to mix up my own colors. Now I've also added, as you can see, a few sprinkles of yellow to brighten up the green even more after coloring the leaf just a bit. Now I'm tapping off the excess, dabbing up a little bit of the excess color, and going back in and touching it up. So as you can see, you can really fiddle with the colors quite a bit, and there's a lot of different things you can do with the Brusho. So I continued to fiddle and play with this, touching it up a little bit with the aqua painter, drying it, adding a little bit more water. I even sprayed it a little bit towards the end as I was kind of adjusting the look that I was trying to get. And in the end, it turned out really pretty. So I did 2 different color schemes for the card bases for these, and you'll see those on my website. One of them was a green focused card base color scheme. The other was a blue and red, and club members got to pick which one they wanted, and for people receiving free card kits in the mail, I'll be sending you one or the other, random selection there. For those of you who purchase a larger amount or are club members, you actually get 2 of each, so typically I will include 1 of each color scheme in a kit. So you can use pretty much any images that you want when you create this project on your own. And it's just all about having fun and playing, and it really was so much fun in my club to see how people created. Lots of people didn't do the repeating images. Lots of people did a single image and mixed it up quite a bit, and I'm going to have tons of pictures on my website, so check it out there, and hopefully you'll play with this and have a blast with it too. Now if you're not quite ready to commit to purchasing Brusho or don't already have it, you can also use an aqua painter with re-inkers and essentially watercolor your images in. So that's always an option as well. So if you're interested in getting free card kits in the mail or joining one of my clubs, there are links in the video description below to my free card kit program and details about my clubs. I hope you've enjoyed the projects today and will come and visit me again soon. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, give it a thumbs up, and share it with friends. Have a great day and happy crafting!